Admiral Kyle Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance and watched the sky turn black with alien ships. The massive vessels hung in Earth's orbit like dark clouds that promised nothing but death. Each ship was 3 times larger than humanity's. Biggest warship, and there were thousands of them. Kyle had fought in wars before, but he had never seen anything like this. Captain Lisa Rodriguez walked up beside him and handed him a data pad. Her face was pale and her hands shook just a little. She had been Earth's best military mind for 20 years, but even she looked scared now. The numbers on the screen told a story that no human wanted to read. The alien fleet could destroy every city on Earth in less than an hour. The communication system crackled to life and a voice spoke in perfect English. The voice was cold and had no feeling in it at all. It sounded like metal scraping against stone. Kyle knew this was the moment that would decide if humanity lived or died. "I am Zethkar of the Galactic Hegemony," the voice said. "Your species will listen to our words and obey them without question. You have built ships that travel between stars, and this is not allowed. You have spread to other worlds, and this breaks our laws. You will return to your home planet and never leave it again. You will destroy all your ships and weapons. You will serve the hegemony as workers and nothing more. You have 72 hours to agree, or we will turn your world into dust." Kyle looked at Lisa and saw his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. They both knew what this meant. Humanity would become slaves, or humanity would die fighting. There was no middle ground with creatures like these. Dr. Nathan Brooks entered the bridge carrying a thick folder of papers. His lab coat was wrinkled and his gray hair stuck up in all directions. He had been studying alien signals for months and his face showed he had learned terrible things. He set the folder down on the command table and opened it with shaking fingers. "Admiral," Nathan said in a quiet voice, "I have translated more of their communications. The hegemony has done this before. They have given this same choice to 47 other species in the last 1,000 years. Every species that said no was completely destroyed. Every species that said yes became slaves forever." Lisa picked up one of the papers and read it quickly. Her face grew even more pale as she read. "Nathan, this says they plan to use humans as manual labor on toxic worlds. They want to work us to death in their mines and factories. Even if we surrender, we still die, just more slowly." Kyle felt anger rising in his chest, like a fire that would never go out. These aliens thought humans were weak because they had better ships and bigger guns. They thought humans would roll over and give up like frightened animals. They had made a very big mistake. President Amanda Taylor appeared on the main screen from the emergency session of the United Nations. Behind her, Kyle could see representatives from every nation on Earth. Some looked ready to fight, and others looked ready to run and hide. The fate of humanity would be decided in that room in the next few hours. "Admiral Morrison," President Taylor said, "I need your honest assessment of our military capabilities. Can we fight these aliens and win?" Kyle looked at the tactical display showing the enemy fleet. The numbers were impossible. Humanity had 200 ships that could fight in space. The aliens had 5,000. Human weapons could barely scratch. Alien armor. Alien weapons could cut through human ships like they were made of paper. "Madam President," Kyle said slowly, "we cannot win a straight fight. They are too strong and we are too few. But that does not mean we should surrender." Lisa stepped forward and her voice was stronger now. "Madam President, we have one advantage the aliens do not expect. Humans do not give up. Every other species they conquered probably tried to negotiate or find a peaceful solution. Humans fight even when we know we cannot win." Nathan nodded and added, "Their communications show they expect us to surrender immediately when we see their fleet. They have never faced a species that chooses death over slavery. They do not understand what that means." President Taylor was quiet for a long moment. Kyle could see her weighing the choice between certain death and certain slavery. Finally, she spoke, and her voice carried to every human in the solar system. I have consulted with every world leader and we have reached our decision. Admiral Morrison, broadcast this message to the alien fleet on all frequencies. Tell them that humanity rejects their ultimatum completely. Tell them we would rather die as free people than live as slaves. Tell them that if they want our worlds, they will have to take them from our dead hands. Kyle smiled for the first time since the aliens arrived. He opened a channel to the alien fleet and spoke words that would echo across the galaxy for 1,000 years. Zethkar of the Galactic. Hegemony, this is Admiral Kyle Morrison speaking for all of humanity. We have heard your demands and our answer is no. We will not surrender our freedom. We will not become your slaves. If you want to destroy us, then try, but know this. We will make you pay for every human life with alien blood. We choose to fight. Pshat. Channel went dead and Kyle turned to his crew. All ships, prepare for battle. Send word to every human colony. The war begins now. 3 months had passed since the first alien ships burned through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. Captain Lisa Rodriguez stood in the cramped command center of the USS Wolverine, one of the few human ships still flying after the initial attacks. The hegemony had moved fast and hit hard, destroying most of Earth's orbital defenses in the first week. Now the surviving human fleet hid in the asteroid belt like wounded animals. Lisa studied the tactical display showing red dots where alien ships patrolled the space around Earth. The blockade was complete. No supplies could reach the human colonies, on Mars or Europa. The aliens had cut off every escape route and were slowly strangling humanity to death. Commander Jake Phillips floated through the zero-gravity corridor toward the command center. His space station Guardian Prime had been the first to fire shots at the aliens, and somehow he had escaped when they destroyed it. His left arm was still in a cast from the explosion, but his eyes burned with the same anger that kept all the surviving humans fighting. Captain, Jake said as he grabbed a handhold to stop himself from drifting, the scouts report alien supply convoys moving through the Jupiter system. 3 cargo ships with only 1 escort vessel. It might be our chance to hit. Back. Lisa nodded and called up the convoy data on her screen. The aliens had grown confident after their early victories. They thought the broken human fleet was no longer a threat. That confidence would cost them dearly. Dr. Nathan Brooks emerged from his laboratory deep in the ship's belly. His face showed exhaustion, but also excitement. For weeks he had been studying pieces of alien technology salvaged from destroyed ships. His breakthrough had come just when humanity needed it most. Captain Rodriguez, Nathan said, holding up a small device that hummed with energy. I think I found something important. The alien weapons work by creating quantum resonance in their targets, but if we can disrupt that resonance, we can stop their weapons from working. Lisa felt hope stir in her chest for the first time in months. Can you build weapons that use this disruption? Nathan smiled and gestured toward his lab. Bobby Chen and Dr. Grace Turner have been helping me. We have already built 3 prototype weapons that can punch through alien shields. They are not perfect, but they work. Bobby Chen appeared behind Nathan, carrying what looked like a normal human plasma rifle, but with strange alien components welded to its sides. The device sparked and hummed in ways that made Lisa's teeth ache, but she could see the power flowing through it. Captain, Bobby said with pride in his voice, this baby can crack alien armor like it was an egg. The resonance disruptor overloads their defensive systems. 1 shot and their shields collapse completely. Dr. Grace Turner joined them carrying a larger version of the weapon. Her eyes showed the same mix of exhaustion and determination that marked all the human survivors. We can retrofit about 20 ships with these weapons before the convoy reaches the Jupiter system. It will not be enough to win the war, but it will show the aliens that humans can adapt. Lisa called up the star charts and began planning the attack. The alien convoy would pass through the asteroid field in 18 hours. If her small fleet could hit them fast and hard, they might capture supplies and prove that humanity was still dangerous. "All department heads to the briefing room," Lisa announced over the ship's communication system. "We are going hunting." Meanwhile, on the occupied colony of New Geneva, Tony Martinez crouched behind the wreckage of a transport vehicle and watched alien soldiers patrol the streets. The crystalline beings moved in perfect formation, their weapons scanning for any sign of human resistance. They had learned that humans did not surrender quietly even when their cities were conquered. Tony checked his rifle and counted the homemade explosives in his pack. The human colonists had been forced underground, but they had not given up fighting. Every day brought new attacks on alien supply lines and communication centers. The aliens controlled the cities, but the humans owned the wilderness. A message came through his hidden radio from resistance cells across the colony. "Tiger 1, this is Eagle Base. Alien supply depot is lightly guarded. Recommend immediate strike." Tony smiled and keyed his radio. "Eagle Base, this is Tiger 1. All units move to attack positions. Show these aliens what happens when they try to cage humans." Back in space, Lisa's fleet moved silently through the asteroid field toward the alien convoy. 22 ships against 4 alien vessels should have been an easy victory, but everyone remembered how badly the first battles had gone. This time would be different because this time humanity had weapons that could fight back. "All ships report ready," Jake announced from his position at the tactical station. "Disruptor weapons are charged and targeting systems are locked on." Lisa watched the alien convoy approach their position. The escort ship was massive and heavily armed, but it flew with the casual confidence of a predator that had never been challenged. That was about to change. "All ships," Lisa broadcast to her fleet. "Remember what we fight for. Remember the colonies they burned and the friends they killed. Today we show the galaxy that humanity does not die quietly. Attack!" The human ships erupted from their hiding places among the asteroids like angry hornets. The new weapons tore through alien shields with bright flashes of disrupted energy. For the first time since the war began, alien ships exploded under human fire. The escort vessel spun around to face the attack, but Bobby Chen's weapons had already crippled its main. Guns. Jake's ship dove under the alien vessel and fired point-blank into its reactor core. The explosion lit up space like a new star. The 3 cargo ships tried to escape, but Lisa had positioned her fleet to cut off all escape routes. One by one, the alien vessels surrendered or died. When the battle ended, the humans had captured enough supplies to feed their colonies for months and proven something that would echo across the galaxy. Admiral Kyle Morrison received the battle report while hiding in the ruins of Earth's orbital command center. As he read about Lisa's victory, he felt the same fire that had kept humanity fighting against impossible odds. "Send this message to every human ship and colony," Kyle ordered his communication officer. "Today, Captain Rodriguez and her fleet showed the aliens that humans can learn and adapt and fight back. This is only the beginning. We will make them pay for every world they have taken from us." The war had truly begun, and the aliens were about to learn why humanity had survived every challenge their violent world had thrown at them. The alien response came swift and terrible. General Pete Harrison watched from his bunker as the sky above Haven Colony turned white with the heat of orbital bombardment. The hegemony had decided to make an example of any world that dared resist their rule. 3 human colonies had already been turned to glass and radioactive dust. Pete gripped his rifle tighter as the ground shook from another impact. His soldiers looked at him with faces that showed fear, but also something the aliens could never understand. They showed defiance that burned brighter than any weapon. These men and women knew they might die in the next few minutes, but none of them talked about surrender. "Sir," Sergeant Danny Foster said as he crawled over to Pete's position, "the aliens are landing troops in the northern sector. Looks like they want to take prisoners this time instead of just killing everyone." Pete nodded and keyed his radio. to reach all the resistance fighters scattered across the colony. All units, this is General Harrison. The aliens think they can break us by bombing our cities and capturing our people. They do not understand that every attack just makes us angrier. Hold your positions and make them pay for every meter of ground. The alien landing craft looked like giant metal insects as they descended through the smoke and flames. Pete had fought against human enemies before, but those wars had rules and limits. This war had no rules except survival. The aliens wanted to erase humanity from existence, and humans would fight with everything they had to prevent that. Dr. Grace Turner worked frantically in her underground laboratory while explosions shook dust from the ceiling above her head. She had been studying the psychological profiles of captured alien soldiers, and her discoveries were changing how humans understood their enemy. The hegemony was not just technologically superior, they were completely different in how they thought and felt. "Nathan," Grace called to Dr. Brooks, who was helping her analyze alien brain scans, "look at these neural patterns. The hegemony species do not show any activity in the areas of the brain that control emotional responses to stress or danger. They literally cannot understand why we keep fighting when we know we cannot win." Nathan studied the data and felt excitement, building despite the battle raging above them. "Grace, this means they have never faced an enemy that fights with pure emotion. Every other species they conquered probably calculated the odds and surrendered when defeat seemed certain. Humans do not think that way." Grace pulled up more data on her screen showing brain scans from human soldiers. "Look at our patterns during combat. The emotional centers are completely active. Fear, anger, determination, love for our families, all of these make us fight harder instead of giving up. The aliens see this as insanity because their brains do not work the same way." Commander Rachel Stone led her strike team through the ruins of Haven's capital city. The aliens had set up a command post in the center of town, and Rachel planned to show them that nowhere was safe from human revenge. Her team moved like shadows through the rubble, using every trick they had learned from months of guerrilla warfare. "Remember," Rachel whispered to her soldiers, "we hit fast and hard, then disappear before they can respond. The goal is not to win this battle, but to make them afraid to sleep at night." The alien command post was defended by crystalline soldiers who stood perfectly still at their guard positions. They were efficient and disciplined, but they could not imagine that defeated humans would dare to attack a heavily defended position. That failure of imagination would cost them dearly. Rachel's team struck from 6 directions at once. Human explosives shattered alien equipment while human rifles cut down guards who had never expected to face desperate enemies. The attack lasted only 3 minutes, but it destroyed the alien command structure for the entire northern continent. Captain Jake Phillips had been given command of the experimental ship USS Vengeance after his heroism at Guardian Prime. The new vessel was built using captured alien technology combined with human engineering that followed no rules except effectiveness. It was ugly and dangerous and perfectly suited for the kind of war humanity was learning to fight. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "we have a clear shot at the alien heavy cruiser. Their shields are down for maintenance." Jake smiled and felt the familiar rush of combat adrenaline. The aliens had made another mistake by assuming humans would follow the civilized rules of warfare that governed battles between other species. Humans had learned to strike when enemies were vulnerable regardless of whether it was considered honorable. "Fire all weapons," Jake ordered. "Show them that humans do not fight fair when our survival is at stake." The USS Vengeance unleashed everything it had at the alien cruiser. Modified human weapons tore through alien armor while captured alien guns punched holes in their hull. The massive enemy ship died in space without ever knowing what hit it. Admiral Kyle Morrison received reports of victories like this from across human space. Each success was small, but together they painted a picture that should have been impossible. Humans were winning battles against technologically superior enemies through sheer determination and tactical creativity that alien minds could not predict. Send a message to President Taylor, Kyle ordered his communication staff. Tell her that human forces have successfully defended Haven Colony and destroyed 12 alien ships in the last week. The enemy is starting to make mistakes because they do not understand how we think. President Taylor read the report in her underground bunker beneath the ruins of New York. The city above her was gone, but humanity endured. She opened a communication channel to broadcast across human space and beyond. Citizens of Earth and all human colonies, President Taylor said, the aliens believed we would surrender when they showed us their superior technology. They believed we would break when they bombed our cities. They were wrong about us just as they have been wrong about everything else. We are humans, and we do not give up. The message reached every human settlement and many alien worlds where other species listened in secret. For the first time in 1,000 years, someone was successfully resisting the hegemony. The impossible was happening, and the galaxy was starting to take notice. Dr. Brooks finished his latest analysis of alien psychology and realized something that changed everything. "Grace," he said with excitement in his voice, "the hegemony has built their entire empire on the assumption that all intelligent species will choose survival over principle. They cannot comprehend a species that would rather die than submit. This makes them fundamentally unprepared for fighting humans." Grace nodded and added, "More than that, Nathan. Our emotional responses are actually giving us a tactical advantage. Human anger makes us fight harder. Human love makes us sacrifice for each other. Human stubbornness makes us refuse to quit even when we should. The aliens see these as weaknesses, but they are actually our greatest strengths. The war was far from over, but something had changed in the last few months. Humans were no longer just surviving. They were adapting and learning and starting to win. The aliens had awakened something in humanity that they did not understand and could not defeat. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans refused to surrender. The rebellion spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the tactical display show something that should have been impossible. 17 different alien species had risen up against the hegemony after intercepting human broadcasts. The war was no longer just about humanity's survival. The first contact came from the Vactari, a reptilian species that had been enslaved by the hegemony for over 300 years. Their leader, a scarred warrior named Thekvar, appeared on the communication screen of Rodriguez's ship. His scales were marked with old wounds, and his eyes burned with the same fire that drove human resistance. "Admiral Rodriguez," Thekvar said in broken but determined English, "my people have heard your broadcasts about fighting for freedom. We have been slaves for so long we forgot what it meant to resist. Your species has reminded us. Will you help us strike back at our oppressors?" Lisa felt a surge of pride mixed with responsibility. Humanity had become something they never expected, to be a symbol of hope for every oppressed being in the galaxy. "Commander Thekvar, we will stand with any species that chooses freedom over slavery. Send us your fleet positions and we will coordinate our attacks." Lieutenant Colonel Danny Foster had been promoted after his success in the Haven campaign. Now, he led a mixed force of humans and alien rebels called the Liberation Fleet. The ships were a strange mix of human vessels modified with alien technology and alien ships retrofitted with human weapons that ignored the established rules of space combat. "Colonel," his Vactari second-in-command reported, "we have identified a slave labor camp on Kepler 7. 2,000 prisoners from 6 different species. The guards are minimal because the hegemony never expected a rescue attempt." Dowar studied the intelligence data and felt the familiar anger that had driven him since the war began. The hegemony treated sentient beings like disposable tools. They worked their prisoners to death in toxic mines and radioactive factories, then simply captured more slaves to replace them. "All ships prepare for immediate departure," Danny ordered. We are going to free those prisoners and show the galaxy that the age of slavery is ending. Dr. Nathan Brooks worked with alien scientists in laboratories hidden throughout the liberated zones. The combination of human creativity with alien knowledge was producing technologies that neither species could have developed alone. The breakthrough came when they learned to phase matter between dimensional states. "Lisa," Nathan said over the secure communication channel, "we have done it. The Ghost Ship project is ready for testing. We can make our vessels exist partially outside normal space, which makes them almost impossible to target with conventional weapons." Captain Rachel Stone volunteered to test the first Ghost Ship technology. Her vessel, USS Phantom, flickered in and out of visible reality as she approached an alien patrol fleet. The enemy sensors could not lock onto a ship that only existed in their dimension half the time. "Nathan, this is incredible," Rachel reported as she flew her ship through the middle of the alien formation without being detected. "I can phase in, just long enough to fire weapons then disappear before they can shoot back. This changes everything." The Hegemony's ruling council met in emergency session on their capital world of Dominion Prime. For the first time in 1,000 years, they faced something their empire had never encountered: systematic rebellion that was spreading faster than they could contain it. The crystal beings that formed the core of their power structure struggled to understand what was happening. "The human disease is infecting our entire empire," the lead council member declared with anger that made his crystalline body glow bright red. "These emotional primitives have taught our slaves to value abstract concepts like freedom over practical concerns like survival. We must end this before our entire civilization collapses." Zeth Carr, the Hegemony commander, who had first demanded humanity's surrender, stood before the council with his confidence badly shaken. "Honored ones, we have underestimated the humans completely. They do not think like any species we have encountered before. They fight with an intensity that our battle computers cannot predict or counter." The council demanded solutions, but Zeth Carr had none to offer. Every attempt to crush human resistance had only made it stronger. Every show of force had inspired more alien species to join the rebellion. The Hegemony was discovering that fear was only an effective tool of control when the victims were willing to be afraid. General Kyle Morrison, now commanding all human military forces, stood before a gathering of rebel leaders from across the galaxy. The meeting was held in secret on a rogue planet between star systems where Hegemony sensors could not detect them. The assembled beings represented dozens of species that had found courage through humanity's example. "Friends," Kyle said to the mixed crowd of humans, reptiles, aquatic beings, and energy creatures, "6 months ago, each of our species stood alone against Hegemony oppression. Today, we stand together as the Free Worlds Alliance. Together, we are strong enough to challenge an empire that has ruled through fear for a millennium." The aquatic Merilasi species had been secretly building ships for the rebellion using their mastery of underwater construction techniques. Their leader, a being that looked like a cross between a dolphin and an octopus, spoke through a translation device. "Admiral Morrison," the Merilasi representative bubbled, "our shipyards have completed construction of 50 vessels designed specifically for fighting Hegemony forces. We offer them to the Alliance fleet as our contribution to the cause of freedom." Felt hope building in his chest as he looked around the room at beings who had chosen to risk everything for the chance to be free. Humanity had started this war fighting for their own survival, but now they fought for something much larger. They fought to free the galaxy itself. President Amanda Taylor addressed the galaxy from Earth's rebuilt orbital command center. The planet still bore scars from the Hegemony's bombardment, but humanity had refused to let their homeworld die. Her words reached every inhabited system where beings listened in secret. "People of the galaxy," President Taylor said, "for too long you have lived under the boot of oppression. For too long you have accepted that slavery is the natural order of the universe. Humanity rejects that lie, and we call on every sentient being to reject it as well. Freedom is not a gift that others give you. It is a right that you must claim for yourself. The message sparked uprisings on 23 worlds in the next 48 hours. The hegemony found their military forces stretched thin, trying to contain rebellions that erupted faster than they could be suppressed. Their empire was cracking under the pressure of species that had learned to fight back. Dr. Grace Turner analyzed the psychological impact of human resistance on other alien species. Her research showed that humanity's emotional approach to warfare was contagious in ways the hegemony had never anticipated. "Nathan," Grace said excitedly, "we are not just teaching other species military tactics. We are teaching them to feel emotions they had forgotten or never experienced. The Vaktari are learning to feel anger about their oppression. The Merlasi are learning to feel hope for a better future. Humans are awakening something in the galaxy that has been sleeping for too long." The war had evolved beyond a simple conflict between humans and aliens. It had become a battle between two different philosophies of existence. The hegemony believed that order and efficiency required the strong to rule the weak absolutely. Humanity believed that freedom and dignity were worth any sacrifice to preserve and protect. As rebel fleets gathered in secret across the galaxy, one thing became clear to everyone involved. The universe was changing, and there would be no going back to the old ways. Either the hegemony would crush the rebellion completely, or freedom would spread to every corner of known space. The final battle was coming, and both sides knew it would determine the fate of every living being in the galaxy. The hegemony's final armada blotted out the stars as it approached Earth. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching sensors track over 1,000 enemy vessels moving in perfect formation toward humanity's homeworld. The alien fleet represented every ship the hegemony could spare from their crumbling empire. This would be their last attempt to crush the rebellion before it destroyed them completely. "Admiral," Commander Jake Phillips reported from his position at the tactical station, "the combined rebel fleet is ready. 300 human ships, 200 Vaktari vessels, 150 Merlasi craft, and assault ships from 12 other species. We are still outnumbered 3-1, but we have never had better odds than this." Lisa nodded and opened a communication channel to President Amanda Taylor in Earth's command bunker. The planet below them showed the scars of 2 years of war, but humanity had rebuilt stronger than before. Cities rose from the ashes with defensive systems that incorporated the best of human and alien technology. "Madam President," Lisa said, "the enemy fleet will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours. This is the battle we have been preparing for since the war began. If we win here, the hegemony empire falls forever. If we lose, then freedom dies with us." President Taylor's face appeared on the main screen, showing determination that had carried humanity through the darkest moments of the war. Behind her, the leaders of the Free Worlds Alliance gathered to witness the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. "Admiral Rodriguez," President Taylor said, "2 years ago, the hegemony gave us a choice between slavery and death. We chose neither. Today, we choose victory. Show the universe that freedom cannot be conquered by any force in existence." The rebel fleet moved into defensive positions around Earth while the hegemony armada continued its relentless advance. Lisa watched the tactical display and felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Every decision she made in the next few hours would echo across the galaxy for centuries to come. Dr. Nathan Brooks coordinated the deployment of humanity's secret weapons from his position deep inside Earth's orbital defense network. The ghost ship technology had been refined and improved until entire fleets could phase in and out of normal space at will. The aliens had no defense against weapons that could strike from dimensions they could not even detect. All ghost ships. "Report ready," Nathan announced over the tactical network. "Captain Stone's squadron is positioned behind the enemy fleet. Colonel Foster's Liberation Fleet is ready to phase in from the dimensional buffer zone. The aliens will not know what hit them until it is too late." Captain Rachel Stone commanded 50 ghost ships that existed in a state between dimensions. Her vessels were invisible to enemy sensors and could strike without warning from any direction. The technology was still experimental and dangerous, but it gave the rebels their only chance against the overwhelming enemy numbers. "Ghost Squadron, prepare for dimensional insertion," Rachel ordered her fleet. "Remember that we can only stay phased for short periods. Hit them hard and fast, then return to dimensional buffer before their weapons can lock onto us." The battle began when the Hegemony fleet opened fire on Earth's orbital defenses. Alien energy beams lanced through space toward the planet, while human missile systems responded with salvos of modified warheads. The space around Earth lit up with explosions as two fundamentally different approaches to warfare clashed in deadly combat. General Pete Harrison coordinated the ground defenses from his command post in the restored city of Haven. The aliens had landed troops on the continents while their main fleet fought in orbit. Human soldiers and alien allies fought side by side to protect the civilian population that had become the symbol of resistance across the galaxy. "All ground units, this is General Harrison," Pete broadcast to his mixed force of human and alien troops. "The enemy thinks they can break our spirit by threatening our families and homes. Show them that every human city is a fortress and every human civilian is a warrior when freedom is at stake." Colonel Danny Foster led the Liberation Fleet in a desperate charge against the center of the Hegemony formation. His ships were crewed by beings from dozens of different species who had learned to fight together despite their biological differences. They flew with the reckless courage that humans had taught to the galaxy. "All ships follow my lead," Danny ordered as his flagship dove toward the massive alien dreadnoughts. "We may not have their numbers or their technology, but we have something they can never understand. We fight for each other and for the future we want to build." Fleet smashed into the alien center like a hammer blow. Human tactics combined with alien technology created chaos in the perfectly ordered Hegemony formation. Ships that had never been designed to work together fought as a unified force driven by shared determination to be free. Captain Jake Phillips commanded the experimental battleship USS Vengeance as it led the main human fleet against the enemy's left flank. The vessel was armed with weapons that violated every principle of civilized warfare, but perfectly matched humanity's approach to survival. It fought without honor or restraint because the survival of freedom itself was at stake. "Weapons free," Jake ordered his crew. "Hit them with everything we have. Show these aliens what happens when they threaten the human species." The Vengeance unleashed a barrage of conventional and exotic weapons that turned 3 alien cruisers into expanding clouds of debris. Human engineering that followed no rules except effectiveness proved superior to alien technology that prioritized efficiency over innovation. Captain Rachel Stone's ghost ships materialized inside the enemy formation like vengeful spirits. The alien fleet suddenly found itself under attack from weapons that appeared from nowhere and vanished before they could respond. The perfectly coordinated Hegemony battle plan collapsed into confusion as ships tried to fight enemies they could not see or predict. "Ghost Squadron, this is Stone," Rachel broadcast to her invisible fleet. "Phase in for 30 seconds maximum, then return to dimensional buffer. Keep hitting them until their formation breaks completely." The ghost ships struck again and again like lightning that appeared from clear skies. Alien commanders who had never experienced unpredictable warfare found their tactical computers useless against human creativity that refused to follow logical patterns. Admiral Lisa Rodriguez watched the battle develop from her command position and saw something that filled her with fierce pride. The combined rebel fleet was not just holding its own against superior numbers, it was winning. Ships crewed by beings who had been slaves 6 months ago were destroying the vessels of their former masters. "All fleet units, this is Admiral Rodriguez," Lisa broadcast to the thousands of ships engaged in combat around Earth. "The enemy is breaking. They came here expecting to face a defeated species begging for mercy. Instead, they found free beings willing to die for what they believe in." Press the attack and show the galaxy that tyranny ends today. The Hegemony flagship, A massive crystal vessel that had ruled space for 1,000 years found itself surrounded by rebel ships that attacked from every direction. The alien commander Zethkar realized with growing horror that his empire was dying around him. The impossible had happened. Emotion had triumphed over logic, and freedom had proven stronger than fear. As alien ships began to surrender or flee the battlefield, President Taylor addressed the galaxy from Earth's command center. Her words reached every world where beings had dreamed of freedom but never dared to hope for it. "People of the galaxy," President Taylor said, "today you have witnessed the end of an age of darkness. The hegemony claimed that order required oppression and that peace demanded slavery. We have proven them wrong. Freedom is not chaos and liberty is not weakness. Today marks the beginning of a new age where every being has the right to determine their own destiny." The battle was won, but the war was far from over. Across the galaxy, hegemony strongholds still held millions of slaves. But something fundamental had changed in the last few hours. The rebels had proven that the Empire could be defeated, and freedom could spread to every corner of known space. 5 years had passed since the great battle above Earth, and the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. Fleet Commander Kyle Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship, watching the liberation of Dominion Prime, the former capital world of the hegemony empire. The crystalline cities that had once housed the ruling council now welcomed refugees from dozens of species who were learning what it meant to be free. The Free Worlds Alliance had grown from a desperate alliance of rebels into the dominant force in known space. Humanity served as one of many founding members in a government that valued the unique contributions of every species. The age of slavery and oppression had ended, but the work of building a better galaxy had only just begun. Dr. Nathan Brooks had become the most respected scientist in Alliance space through his research into what he called human factors. His studies of how emotional drive could overcome technological superiority had revolutionized everything from military tactics to social organization. Alien species across the galaxy were learning to embrace feelings they had suppressed for millennia. "Admiral Morrison," Nathan said as he joined Kyle on the observation deck, "the final hegemony holdout on Zerion 4 has surrendered. That makes every former slave world officially free. The empire that ruled through fear for 1,000 years no longer exists anywhere in the galaxy." Kyle nodded and felt a satisfaction deeper than any military victory. The war had been won not just through superior firepower, but through the power of an idea that had spread faster than any weapon. Freedom was contagious, and once it infected a population, it could never be completely eliminated. President Amanda Taylor worked in her office in the restored capital of Earth, preparing for the signing of the Galactic Freedom Charter. The document represented input from over 100 different species and established principles that would govern interstellar relations for generations to come. The charter was built on concepts that humanity had introduced to the galaxy, but which now belonged to all sentient beings. "Madam President," her aide announced, "the representatives from the Outer Rim systems have arrived. They are ready to sign the charter and join the Alliance officially." Amanda smiled and felt pride in what humanity had accomplished since that desperate day when alien ships had first darkened Earth's skies. Humans had not just survived the challenge, they had used it to lift up every oppressed being in the galaxy. The species that had refused to surrender had taught the universe that surrender was never necessary. Captain Alex Wright commanded the exploration vessel USS Liberty as it traveled toward the far edge of known space. The young officer represented a new generation of humans who had grown up in a galaxy where freedom was the norm rather than the exception. His mission was to explore new regions and offer Alliance membership to any species that desired it. "Captain," his communication officer reported, "we are receiving a distress signal from the Andromeda border region. It appears to be from a species we have never encountered before. They claim to be fighting for survival against overwhelming odds." Alex felt the familiar stirring of human determination that had driven his species to greatness. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, another people was learning the same lesson humanity had faced years earlier. Sometimes the only choice was between freedom and death, and sometimes that was not really a choice at all. "Set course for the source of that signal," Alex ordered his crew. "Tell them this is the Free Worlds Alliance and we are coming to help. No species should have to face oppression alone." On Earth, a great monument stood in the ruins of the first city destroyed by hegemony bombardment. The memorial listed the names of every human and alien who had died fighting for freedom during the Long War. At the base of the monument, simple words were carved in the stone in dozens of different languages. They fought not for conquest, but for the right to remain free. Their sacrifice lit a fire that burned across the stars and freed a galaxy from darkness. Let no being forget that freedom is worth any price, and tyrants fall when people refuse to bow. Dr. Grace Turner had established the Institute for Interspecies Psychology on the Moon, where researchers from across the Alliance studied how different species could work together despite their biological and cultural differences. Her work had shown that diversity was not a weakness to be overcome, but a strength to be celebrated and protected. "Nathan," Grace said as they walked through the Institute's gardens, where plants from 50 different worlds grew together in careful harmony, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if humanity had chosen differently that first day? What if we had surrendered when the hegemony demanded it?" Nathan stopped and looked up at the stars visible through the dome overhead. Each point of light represented worlds where beings lived free, because humanity had chosen to fight rather than submit. "Grace, I think the universe would be a much darker place. Sometimes one species has to be willing to stand up and say no to change the course of history." Colonel Danny Foster, now a general in the Alliance military, trained mixed species units in the tactics that had won the war against the hegemony. His students included beings who had been slaves just years earlier and now served as officers in the forces that protected galactic freedom. "Remember," Danny told his latest class of cadets, "superior technology and overwhelming numbers mean nothing if your enemy refuses to give up. The hegemony lost because they could not understand why beings would choose death over slavery. Never underestimate the power of someone who fights for something they believe in." Captain Rachel Stone commanded the first fully integrated Ghost ship squadron with crews drawn from every member species of the Alliance. The technology that had once been humanity's secret weapon was now shared freely with all beings who swore to use it only in defense of freedom. "Ghost Squadron, prepare for dimensional insertion," Rachel ordered, as her ships moved to intercept a group of pirates threatening Alliance shipping lanes. "Show these criminals that the galaxy belongs to those who respect the rights of others." Admiral Lisa Rodriguez served as the Supreme Commander of Alliance naval forces, with a fleet that represented the combined military might of dozens of species working together. She had learned that victory came not from having the biggest guns, but from having the strongest reasons to fight. "All fleet commanders," Lisa broadcast from her flagship, "remember that we serve not just our own species, but every being in the galaxy who chooses freedom over oppression. We are the guardians of an idea that has transformed the universe, and we will defend it with our lives if necessary." The communication came through just as Alex Wright's ship reached the edge of Alliance space. The distress signal was clearer now and told a story that was both familiar and heartbreaking. A species called the Zenthari was fighting for survival against an invasion by machine intelligences that sought to convert all organic life into digital slaves. "Captain Wright," the alien voice said through the translation system, "we have heard rumors of a great alliance that values freedom above all else. Our world is dying, and our people face extinction or slavery worse than death. If you truly stand for the principles your broadcasts claim, then please help us. We have nowhere else to turn." Alex felt the weight of history on his shoulders as he prepared to respond. This was the moment when humanity's legacy would be tested once again. Would they stand by their principles when faced with a new threat? Or would they retreat to the safety of their own borders? Zenthari vessel, this is Captain Alex Wright of the Free Worlds Alliance. Alex responded without hesitation. We have received your distress call, and we are coming to assist you. No species should face extinction alone, and no being should be forced into slavery. Freedom is worth fighting for no matter what form oppression takes. The USS Liberty changed course toward the Zenthari homeworld, with its crew preparing for battle against an enemy they had never faced before. Behind them, the Alliance mobilized its vast fleets to meet this new threat to galactic freedom. The war against the hegemony was over, but the fight for liberty would continue as long as beings existed who valued their independence. As the stars wheeled overhead and new challenges arose to test the resolve of free peoples, one truth remained constant across the galaxy. When people refused to surrender, tyrants fell and worlds became free. The human spirit of defiance had become the heritage of every species that chose dignity over safety and freedom over life itself. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it was also bright with the light of liberty that could never be completely extinguished. Somewhere among the stars, new heroes would rise to face whatever threats emerged, and they would carry forward the lesson that humanity had taught to the galaxy. Freedom was not a gift to be granted by others, but a right to be claimed by those brave enough to fight for it.